help one another get ready. Have some good competition. You'll see back and forth, offense versus defense, and I'm ready to get rolling with the team today. So let's get started with you guys.
With Jayden not on IR, what's the update on him? With the plan for him?
Yep, we are actually going through a final medical meeting today regarding second opinions and that to put the plan together. So we should have an update for you here, the next day or so. Just being thorough through the whole process, like all the guys, to make sure all the opinions, and then gather all the info, and then make the decisions from there.
And then we've talked a lot about the physical toll of the injuries, and just like guys who are missing. What's the mental toll on this many injuries on a team? When you see, I know it's next man up, but what's the mental toll like?
Yeah, it's a great question, John. It is, because there's continuity issues that take place first off when you have an injury of people, not in sync all the time together. But the mental toll, it's definitely a big one. It's also for the guys that are out, some that are out that'll come back, some that are out for the season. And the ones that I worry about are the ones out for the season. As far as the mental toll collectively, team, like everybody goes through it, and some stuff, not injuries, but I'm saying hard things, and you find your way and you adapt. But it's better to acknowledge it, talk about it, and find the best plan moving forward. And if you have, the right mindset to go solve the problems, then, okay, this is what we need to go do, and this is how we need to go do it. And I think just being straight about it, John, is the best approach to eliminate any doubt. This is how we're going to go win, and each game is winnable, and you have to say this is how we're going to go do it for this game. And that may look different week to week, but for us, that's where the focus goes. And I try to explain that in the beginning of the week, and then you try to make that come to life through the game plan and the practice. And so having a whole week to go do that against a talented Detroit team, like we'll need the whole week and the practice to do that.
Dan, what is the film showing you about Mikey this season?
Yeah, I would say there's been up and down moments, meaning the playmaker, the interceptions I saw at L.A. and, the last couple of weeks, so the ball hawking mindset, which I love. There's also been a couple of plays of over-trying, to make those plays, and that's kind of part of the process. You don't like to go through that, but when you're capable of making plays, well, I'll make some more, and I'll make a few more. And then all of a sudden, that's not the one that you need to take a chance on. In the basketball world, I'm not going to force this shot. That's what sometimes happens to a ball player who has the skills to go do that. And I think there's been some examples of that this year. And I'm not surprised because he's a competitor and wants to help and make plays. And so part of my training with the guys and talking to them, I want them to feel backs against the wall and fight for that. But I don't want them to over-try to make things up, to go try to win. Like the attitude, the mindset, that's good, but not at the expense of veering off course to do something that could have other consequences. And he has to learn that, I would say, but he's not alone in that. That's, everybody, when you fight like hell, you want to make a play for the team, you want to change the course of things, and so it's actually when you need to be the most disciplined. And those are good, hard lessons, but ones that I'm certain that he's learned too.
What does he have to lean into as a second-year player who has this? It's a natural kind of progression. There's tape on you now. There's ways to attack you now. And what does he have to lean into to kind of get through those rough patches when it doesn't go the way he would like it to go?
Yeah, I think you have to lean into the discipline and the technique, because when you play with that and you have that and you can lean on that, man, then you're good, David, because now I know I can play the technique and play it when you're maybe I'm off, I'm back, I want to take a shot, then you're not out of the technique. So I think there's like a real discipline that has to take place. And as you're going through, sometimes I feel like he's older than going into the second year, but some of those players that have more years, okay, that's not the time. That's not the place to go take your shot. He's still learning that. And I know that he'll learn from this. He's a sharp guy, but we can't have ones where you can and where you can't. So the discipline, I would say, is the biggest factor for a ball player who's a playmaker, because they know they can make the next one and make the next one. And so I imagine that's much the same conversation, what's the right shot when you've covered that. So it's for the guys that aren't capable of making some of those, they are probably more disciplined in sometimes because I can't make that play all the way over there, where sometimes a player thinks they can.
Two-part playing off that. Is it expected then that you're seeing it in year 2 more so than year 1 with him, and then just with him and Quinn together, just the two together, how do you feel like they're developing after a really strong first year together?
Yeah, that's a great question. And they're both going through it too, they want it to be right and good. Like, these are two really committed guys. And so, going for Quinn, like whether it's a tackling, that didn't go the way that you want, like, and he's somebody that I have all the faith in to get those done. But when you miss them, you want to talk about him, acknowledge him, and say, this is what needs to be done to go make this play, get this technique done. And sometimes over-trying can be that way. I want to do this, and I thought he was going to do that, and like, no, man, just trust the technique. And so I've sensed with both of them some of that, and they're two guys that I just believe in so much, and to stay in the discipline of it, and like those plays will generally be made.
And then going back to the injuries, what is your approach with Adam when you guys are digging deep into the well of players that you need to find just to have depth and reserve there? What does it change from what it did normally at the start of the season? I mean, how do you work this out with him?
Yeah, we talk through the team, every day, so that's the good part. To dig in, and he and his staff and Lance and on the guys from the pro side, they've really done a good job. It's the hardest, I would say, Nikki, when there's multiples at a position. So for us, that would be like wide receiver and DNs, because then there's layers down to it. When it's elevate from the practice squad, they've been in the system, been in training camp, that makes it a little bit easier because system, training, like that person's getting themselves ready for their opportunity. And you pray and you hope that that doesn't come from the injury side. You hope a player on the practice squad says, man, we got to get his ass in the game. He is working it at practice. He's improving. He's getting there. The other side is if a contingency happens, if an injury took place, he's ready to play. So I'd say it's harder when you add those players in season, because then there's less bank reps, less continuity together. Not to say it can't be done. Of course it can, but that's part of the hardest part, I would say, when there's layers at a position. One, okay, that's a shift. But those two positions, I would say it's harder because there's more players at that position. So you could say, well, there's more to go, but still at 3 or 4, it's a big number at a position, even at receiver and D end or O-line, where you play more players than running back or quarterback.
Hey, Coach, with Frankie Luvu potentially suspended on Sunday, it seems like Jordan McGee is going to get more run. What have you seen from Jordan this season as far as that second-year leap?
Yeah, we are very excited about Jordan. We've got some good news on Frankie that he is not going to be suspended, so that's a big deal. But what you've seen from Jordan, there was just a fantastic tackle for loss in the game the other night. He's a very square and secure tackler. You may have even heard me talk about good linebackers who can play square. And the reason you want to do that, so if a ball's going outside and you overrun it, your shoulders are turned, you can allow a cutback lane. And so the best of the best, man, they can play square but have the quickness and the range to go from side to side without having to turn and run. Jordan has that. And so I'm excited to see him develop, and he's going to continue to develop and make more plays.
Over here.
Yep.
You told us on Monday that you're going to bring Joe Witt down to the field. Who
Yep.
goes? Anybody move up to the booth? And ultimately, that move, what do you expect will change or happen with him on that field?
Yep, 2 parts. First, no one else is moving up from that spot to go. Tom Donatel is on the pass side, is up, in that space. So we're covered in that way. What do you expect what's the advantages probably that you want to ask, when you're up and you're down? Obviously you can see Chick so much, clearer from up top. You can see the substitutions. What you don't feel, players and the fast communication that you sometimes need to get to. So when you're not hitting a mark in a certain space, it's the right call. If it's also happened the other way, when you're on the field and, okay, he needs to get out of the emotion of it and just see the play calling. So it's the right call for us at this time. So the players can look directly at Joe. Joe can look directly at them in between a series, to go into that spot. So no one is going to go up, but Joe will come down and kind of wanted to give you the pluses and minuses of those. Both are effective. It just, by play caller and what we need at the moment, you make changes and say, all right, this is what's best for us now. And it's not that uncommon. Where people have done it in season, out of season, one season to the next. So I think it's the right change up for us right now.
Dan, the trade deadline came and went yesterday, and I know this is more kind of AP's department, but can you fill us in at all on why the team stood pat, and if possible, how close were you to making any sort of moves?
Well, first, you're right. The Adam and his staff, they're really thorough. Man, they go through it, and that's part of the process that you go through all these different times a year, when trades, when's draft time, free agency. And one of the things I admire about him is the thoroughness and making really good, tough decisions, And so when you go through a whole process, lots of factors would go into things to say, is it the right deal? Is it the right fit? Both sides. And so when it comes together, he knows exactly how he wants to handle it and where to go. So he was in great communication with me. If, this time of year, everybody calls and talks, but he's really thorough in making sure to make the best decisions.
Dan, with the injury to Jayden and also all the receiver injuries, it kind of leads to a natural progression of running the ball more. When the defense is aware that you might be doing that more and stacking the box, things of that nature, what goes into still remaining effective, in the run game during those moments? Yeah,
what I think you're saying is shots, at bat. And so sometimes the play pass that can come off the run game can be where you have to, make your mark to go. So there can be some times where a 1 yard run or a 2 yard run, that's what the stats would show. But the byproduct of that is this linebacker or the safety going downhill. Can you get a play pass in behind them? And so I think that's the balance of playing first and second down football. And we need to be more effective at both. The more effective you run, play action should be, a little bit more effective. But you have to take the shots at the run game to do that. And that's one of the areas that, is really important to us. We got good O-line, running backs to get rolling. So I wouldn't say it's more important now. It's always a big part of, playing good offense when you can have balance. So, we look forward to improving in that area, I should say, instead of more or less.
Dan, is there any balance between what's right in front of you, the Detroit game, that game that week, and the big picture of what's good for this roster, this team in the long haul?
Well, I think always you want to this. You may or may not have heard this term, but win now, but develop for tomorrow. And I think you can have both buckets if you're organized and thoughtful in how you're developing players. We know some first and second year guys, there's going to be more bumps in the road than just a veteran who's played lots and lots and lots. That's to be expected, but you can do both. And that's our approach here to make sure I love on the first and second year guys, some of the developments that they're making. It goes sometimes this and then this, and man, it'd be awesome if it just kept going up, but that's not how development works. So I think the balance of both is important, but I think you can have two buckets, and I think you can do both simultaneously. Some shift based on opponent, where you're at, but I think you can do both.
Dan, earlier you were discussing the backs against the wall mentality. Curious, have you seen that from this group over the last couple of games? And if not, what does that look like in your eyes on the field?
Well, I think you want to first, that's a fighting mindset to find a way to dig for it. And the nice part about our team, the culture and environment is there to push one another to get better. And when you don't hit the marks, the frustration of why and where, and there can be over trying or, step out, why am I not doing that to go make a play? And so I think what it calls on with your back against the wall is real discipline, man. You don't have to do anybody else's gig, just yours, hard, tough, but don't get out of the discipline of what's required for you. And that's what's needed for us and our team at this time.
You got time for two more?
Kind of like you were talking with Mikey and the defense playing within the defense there. When you look at the running game specifically, do you think that have you seen the offense taking what's being given to them, or do you think that folks are trying to press outside and do a little bit more and make a bigger play out of something that's not necessarily there?
I think there could be signs of both. There was a run in the game where it it was a smaller distance to go, maybe a 2nd and 1 or that, where, hey, man, get the first, as opposed to, and I can get the big one over here, though. No, man, get the first. And so that's an example of real competitiveness misguided. Like, the dog-ass competing is everything we love and want to be about, but I just got to stay in the discipline to get this moment, this yard, this conversion, and then you go play again. Some of it come into penalties too, to say you grabbed, you shouldn't have. In the run game, you certainly don't want any penalties on offense in the run game. If there is, and there's somebody's hitting the quarterback and you grab them, like, that's where those should come. But those are things that knock you out when you can get a penalty that, like, could have been avoided, because all of a sudden you may go from a 2nd and a short or a 2nd down. Now you're at 2nd and 25 and you stall, and that kind of bleeds into, like, starting fast. We're ready to go, 2nd and 25, next drive, another penalty to go, and all of a sudden you're spinning, and you want to get going. So I think the discipline, and it's not like, I'm going to say this in the best way, they're not undisciplined. Don't overtry, right? It's not a knowing assignments or bullshitting. It's, man, this is just hit this part and get it right. Hit the target, get to the space. You don't have to do the extra and the extra. And as a competitor, sometimes that can be hard. I know I can make that play right over there. That's not the one right now. This is what's needed. So it's not chaos or that. It's truly like the discipline to just stay in that space, into that moment, down after down after down. And if somebody beats you on a good play, I guess NFL football, you can live with that. But don't beat ourselves. And too often when you do that, man, that's a hard-ass hole to climb out of. And when the margins are smaller. So you want to make sure, man, stay in that space, stay with the discipline. And if you can do that, then, you give yourself, a much better shot at playing well.
Hey, Coach, in looking back at your cornerback room, with the injury you had to Marshawn out for the year, I think Trey is Nick with a little hip injury. How are you looking to, I guess, to move that room around? Does Mikey maybe go back on the outside, Jonathan Jones? How does that room look at this point?
Yeah, you're on it. The candidates of Jonathan, obviously, he's going to play more, and Noah, he's got the experience inside as nickel as well. So having Jonathan here, and Mike with both inside and outside flex, that's a big deal, Donna, because now you're not just he can only play this spot. Think of it like the offensive lineman that can only play center and can't play guard. So the fact that those two guys play both, that's a big deal for us, and Noah as well. So when you're outside, that's a tough job, and sometimes that's, like Marshawn and Trey mostly play on the outside. But when you have flexibility both, it allows defensively you to, maybe there's a matchup you like, you can even switch in a drive if you'd like, and so that can help too. But you're on the right track. It'll take a few guys to work through how we'll go, moving forward from here.
All right. Thanks, Coach.
All right. Thanks, everybody.